Okay guys, so today let's focus on what exactly is cloud services and what are the different types of compute we can get in cloud. Hopefully everyone is signed in to portal.azure.com. I've shared the documentation to sign in. Hopefully everyone has signed in. As a free tier or as a pay as you go, both will be okay. As I said earlier, that whatever services we'll be using will be very minimal and you'll not get charged much. So if you're not signed in, guys, please go to the website portal.azure.com and sign into this particular page. Okay, so this is nothing but this is Azure Cloud Services portal, which I'm talking about. Okay, for sign in, there is a documentation in place. If you don't have it, please let me know in the group. I'll share it in the group or give it to the Valaxy admin team and they can share it across with you all. Okay, so the first thing we'll start with understanding the basic of cloud concept. Post that we'll understand virtual machines, then we'll understand availability and resiliency. That is what the focus area is. Okay, we all know what exactly is cloud. So in Azure Cloud, what are the things we are covering for now? So we'll talk about virtual machines, networking, Active Directory, storage account, and other services such as Key Vault, app services, Kubernetes services, and there are many other services, guys, which is not mentioned over here, such as ACR, SQL servers, and these things are not mentioned. Even that will be covered. Okay, so before we start with cloud, okay, what exactly is cloud? Why do we call this as a cloud services? Okay, and what is the meaning of cloud? So let's understand that. Okay, is it something the data centers that is there in the cloud? Why do they call it cloud? So cloud, the definition given cloud means that it is easily available everywhere in the world. So from anywhere in any location in the world, you can go and access all your VMs, all your machines, and everything from any given point of time, from any places. So that is the reason it is called as cloud. So guys, I'm just doing a recap, whatever sessions we have done, couple of sessions. I'm just doing a recap. So let me know if we miss anything. Okay. So that is what cloud services are all about. Just give me 1 minute. Okay. So basically, all these are data centers, guys. So data center is all about, it's a location wherein you have your own compute, your own servers, your own networking, your own firewall, your own power supply, everything of your own. So it's a particular location, and from where you have your portal through which you access all your resources. So not just one or two data center, Azure and all these big players, AWS has n number of data centers in each, basically in each country, in each city. Like if we talk about US, it got multiple location, East US, West US, East US 2, West US 2. So they got multiple location data centers across. Okay. Plus in India, they got multiple data center. In China, they got data centers. In Australia, they got data center. In Europe, they have data centers. So basically, they have data center at multiple locations right now. And wherever you go in world, like if you're sitting in US, you got data center nearby to you, so you can access the resources. So when I say resources, I'm talking about the VMs, I'm talking about the storage, I'm talking about the servers, I'm talking about the SQL servers, and all these are the resources which you can access any given point of time. And suppose if you're traveling back to India, you are sitting in Mumbai, you can access the same services even from Mumbai. That is the reason it is known as cloud. It is available anywhere and wherever you go. And you can even share across with multiple other people. Okay? So keeping that in mind, we'll talk about the very important service that is Azure Virtual. machine. Okay? So virtual machine is nothing but it's a compute given to you. When I say compute, I'm talking about your CPUs and your memory. Okay, so your compute given to you, and using that VM you can set up anything on top of it. Okay, so we'll launch the first VM, guys. Okay, VM launching is very easy in Azure. Okay, before I go and launch the VM, let me give you a bit of diagram explanation of data centers so that you can understand it well. So let's talk about, this is your data center. So when I say data center, guys, so this will, suppose, take an example of, it's in somewhere in East US. So it's a location. This East US, which whatever I'm talking about, it's nothing but it's a location to you. So there's a data center somewhere in East US. You can take that way. Okay. This data center will have multiple racks. So it's like a cupboard kind of thing, what they will have it with them. They will have something like this, a racks. And this rack will have all the placement of your resources. When I say resources, I'm talking about CPU, I'm talking about memory, talking about firewall, talking about switches. All this will have it. Each rack has its own power supply unit. It has its own cooling system, and it has its own networking fiber cable coming in. So this is what data center is all about, guys. And this is what Azure has it in good numbers all across the world. Okay, that is, and this is what the resources you access using such portals, or you can access using CLI, you can access using APIs, and there are multiple ways you can access the resources on cloud. Okay, that makes cloud very unique in nature, and it is easily accessible across the world. Okay, guys, any questions till now? I know I'm going bit very scratch, but that's okay. Anyone has any questions till now? No questions, that's okay. Okay, so let me just wipe out this. So if in order to create a VM, there are multiple things you should know. What is the family of the VM you're creating? When I say family, I'm talking about the type of VM you're trying to create. What is the purpose? You need to think about your purpose. Whether it's a high compute, high memory uses, high GPUs, graphic uses. So what exactly, why do you need to create? What is your application requirement? Okay, so you need to check which family VM. If you want to check, you can simply go on Google, look for Azure VM family series, family size of series, whatever you want to say. So VM sizes in Azure. So these are the types of VMs you get: general purpose, compute optimized, memory optimized, storage optimized, GPU, and high performance. So these are the sizes which you get. So based on the sizes, the charges are calculated, guys. Based on the sizes, the charges are calculated. Don't worry about the charges. I'll show you how exactly to calculate charges in Azure. I'll show you that later. For now, these are the family series: B series, F series, E series, L series. These are the family series, and based on this series, what you see right now, a charges will be calculated. So general purpose, in general purpose, you'll have balanced CPU to memory ratio. So this is ideal for testing and development. Compute optimized, high CPU memory ratio, good for medium traffic web servers. Memory optimized, high memory. So this is basically used for databases, wherein you have high memory, so you'll have more databases. Storage optimized, this is mostly used for data lake. wherein you're dumping data in big numbers. So this is how it is used. GPU, if you want to use this VM for any kind of animations purpose, then this is what GPU is all about. So keep this in mind when you launch any VMs in Azure. Okay. So let's go back to Azure. When you're launching, when you signing, if you're signing in on portal, Azure portal for the very first time, I have the documentation in place, guys. In case you have not signed in yet, I know many of you are joining for the first time, so that's why I'm going a bit depth, explaining the basic of cloud first before moving on to the advanced topic. So this is the page which I have shared. It has all the steps to signing on portal.azure.com. Follow this and sign in. If you have any issues, any concern, please do let me know in the WhatsApp chat group, or else we can try have a session wherein I'll show you how to sign in. Okay, so do let me know. Make sure you're signed in. Once you signed in, you come to this screen, and if you want to create any VM, so just look for virtual machine at the very top. Okay, so you come to this screen and just click on create. Sure, I'll share it in the group itself, Srisha. Thank you. Okay, this is the page when you come in. One thing I want to let you know, when you create any resources in Azure, the first thing which gets created is the resource group. The first thing which gets created is the resource group, post which you will have your service plan created, post which you will have your actual resources created. Okay, this is the flow. Resource group is a new concept, not new. It came in the year 2013. Prior to that, this resource group concept was not there with Azure. What exactly is this resource group concept? Grouping of resources, okay, and sharing the same life cycle. Now, when I say what do I mean by grouping of resources? Now, when you create a VM, virtual machine, so is the VM is the only thing which gets created? No. Along with the VM, you will have disk attached. So even a disk is getting created. Along with a disk, there is a public IP attached, because without public IP, you cannot access any resources. Along with it, you'll have a OS, operating system attached, and you will have networking, virtual network attached, VNet. So there are multiple things which gets attached when you create just a VM. So I'm just creating a VM right now, but later I'll show you there are multiple other things where you will see getting created out of this. So these are the services, these are the resources which gets created. So with this resource group, all these services are grouped together under one resource group name. So what is the benefit of doing this grouping? You can manage the entire life cycle of these resources at once. If you want to delete this VM, you just delete this resource group. All other related services will be deleted along with. If you want to give managing permission becomes very easy. If you want to give permission to this VM to someone, you can give permission at the resource group level, and the permission will be given to all the resources. That is what the benefit of them, and other benefits as well. With this resource group, you got this ARM and everything in place. You can even use templating and many things you can do. So this is the benefit which we have it with resource group. Nowadays, this is by default, guys. Prior to resource group, there was a concept of classic. You will still find classic in Azure portal. If you see whatever classic this is, what was the difference between resource group and classic? In classic, suppose if you're creating a VM, each resources needs to be created and managed separately. If suppose you have created a VM and you want to give access, so you need to give access to each resources. So it was very difficult to manage resources in cloud at that point of time. We're using classic. Classic is sooner it will be obsolete. It's there. Few of the services are there. There's no new services coming in Classic. So few of them are there because there are people across the globe. They are still using Classic because they have their own legacy application running on top of it. So sooner or later it will get obsolete. We'll have to focus on resource group thing. Okay, so keep this in mind. So this is what it is asking me, guys. This is my subscription. This subscription will be created when you signing. If you're creating for free tier, you'll have free tier over here. Mine is not free tier. Mine is pay as you go. So that is the reason it is giving this name over here. Okay. Now this is the place wherein it will ask you to create the resource group. So by default, the first thing you need to create is the resource group. Okay. So let's go and create a resource group. Let's name it as Valaxy group, whatever name you want to give. This is the virtual machine name. So give it whatever name you want to give. VM1. Region, you can select whichever region. I'll select East US for now. There's no specific rule that you need to select East US, but if you're using free tier, there are many services which will be only available in East US, guys. If you're using pay as you go, there's no issue. But if you're using free tier, then most of the services will be only available in East US. Image, it is Ubuntu. So whatever, if you want to select some other image, you can come and click on see all the images, and from here you can select if you have any specific requirement to select any specific image. Okay, I don't have any such requirement. I can stick with anything. Let's go back to create virtual machine. I'll stick with 1804 LTS. It's a Ubuntu machine. So don't worry, guys, if you have not worked on Linux. After Azure Cloud, we'll have sessions on Linux wherein I'll explain you all the basic command line and everything, how to work with Linux operating system and everything. I'll cover that. Now, very important point is this, the size. See this family, it's a D series. So what is D series? Stands in general purpose. Okay. If you want to change it, this is the costing it's showing over here. If you want to see change it, you can click and select anyone from here. See this. It will show you the cost, but if you're in free tier, this comes in free tier, guys. Okay. I can select this 1 vCPU and 1 gig of memory. That is more than enough for me. Authentication type, there are two ways you can log in into Linux. One is through SSH keys and one is through user ID password. For now, we'll stick with user ID password, keeping things very simple. Later, we'll change it to SSH. Let's allow port 22. So using port 22, that's a SSH port. I'll be able to connect to this particular VM. Okay. Now, if I just review and create, what it will do, it will automatically create the virtual network. It will automatically create the storage, attach the storage account, everything, every other things will be created automatically. Okay. So let's wait while it is creating those things. Now, if you see this, this is your information regarding your VM. If you come down, this is the information regarding your disk. This is the information regarding your networking. This is for management, monitoring, advanced. So all these other services, as I said earlier, it will automatically will get created along with the VM, because along with VM is not the only thing which gets created, guys. There are other services of VM which is also getting created along with it. Okay. Anyone has any questions till now while the VM is getting created? This is very simple, very straightforward. A simple VM which we have created just now. After this, we'll talk about availability and resiliency. That is more from the DevOps and infra management perspective. Let's wait. I'll quickly show you how do we connect to this VM, post which we'll talk about availability and resiliencies. Okay, so if you see the deployment was successful, so just go back, click on this virtual machine, and if I go into the VM, very good question asked, so I'll answer that later. Okay, so this is my group which got created. Now if I go back, just look for resource group at the top. Inside this group, Valaxy group was created. If you come down, see the resources created, guys. We got the virtual network, we got the VM, we got the public IP, network security group, network interface, disk. Okay, all these services got created. Now if you want to connect to this VM, click on the VM itself. Now on the right hand side, you should see the public IP. It's coming up. So this is the public IP. Using this public IP, you will be able to connect to this particular VM. And if you see the status of this VM, it's running right now. Okay. What is the operating system we selected? 1804. And this is the private IP. Now let's go and connect. In order to connect, I use bash shell. Okay. So just make sure, go on Google again, look for Git for Windows. If everyone is using Windows, then this is the link. If you're using Mac, then Git for Mac and download Git. So I think in Mac OS right nowadays you have Git by default. So Git for Windows, this is the second link. Go on download package for Git. This is the link which you need to go. And if you're using a Windows machine, guys, so this is the setup which you need to download. It's a exe file. Just download this setup, hit next, 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 and Git bash will get downloaded on your local system. So after the download, if you just do Git, these are the things which you will come across: Git command line, Git GUI, Git bash. I'll talk about all these three apps in details when I start with Git. For now, this is the bash which we need. Why exactly I'm using this shell, this black screen, guys? So this is nothing but it's a bash shell. This will help me connect to the VMs. This will help me connect to the VMs, and it will let me execute all the bash commands. So what do I mean by bash commands? All this command ls and all these are all Unix commands which I can run it in this shell. Okay, and I'll be using this in my Git sessions also. So this is any which way is needed. This software is any which way is needed. So make sure to download and keep it now itself. Okay, now in order to connect, just copy this public IP, do SSH. The username was Valaxy at and the public IP, and try to connect. So if you remember, we have opened port 22, guys. So because the port 22 is open, it will allow us to enter the server. Now let me enter the server. See, I'm connected right now. If you want to see which servers I'm connected right now, this is the VM1 which we have connected right now. Okay. So this is a quick glance. How do we create VMs in Azure Cloud? Let's exit out of it. Let me show you once you're done with your testing, once you're done with your training, how do you get rid of this complete VM at once? As I said, it's all grouped together with a resource group name. So just come to this resource group, click on at the top, delete resource group. Copy this name, come over here, apply force delete, delete. This is the practice, even you have to keep it. If you don't do it, unnecessary, you'll get charged. Okay, guys. So make sure once you're done with your training, once you're done with your practice, delete the resource there and there. Okay. Keep this in mind. Now, why exactly I have created this VM and deleted at the same time? This is just to give you an example. How do we create a simple VM on Azure? The next topic which we'll talk about It's all about re resiliencies. Now, what exactly is resiliency? And what is exactly is availability? Now, you have created a VM, guys. Like suppose there was a question. Let me answer that question first. Okay. In a work environment, does the project manager instruct you to what type of VM to make? Okay. So this is a role of a solution architect, wherein when he is designing the complete architect, how the flow will be, what type of VMs will be, and when he's making the costing, and when the what is the project requirement, what type of application you're running, what will be the compute, is it more data centric application, is it more front end centric, is it more API centric, all this calculation happens first. Based on that, the VM size will be selected, because you'll get a compute. When you do this calculation, you'll get the compute that okay, for running this application I will need 16 GB of memory and at least 8 vCPUs. This is the calculation. When you come across with this calculation, then based on that calculation you will be going and selecting the VM family. So this is basically when the designer is designing the complete architect. So you being a DevOps engineer right now, in future you have to be a solution architect. So first step, DevOps engineer. Second step, senior DevOps engineer. Third step, you can be a technical specialist. Fourth step, solution architect. When you reach to this position, this is the place where you will be designing the entire application flow. You will be given that this is the application which we need to set up, and based on that setup, you will be designing the flow. At that time, you can do all this calculation. So this is not the architect will design by himself. He has to interact with the application team. He has to check with the application team what exactly the application requirement is, how much compute it is taking, what is the max threshold the application may reach, and all this information will be gathered with. He needs to communicate with the development team. Once he gets all this answer, then based on that calculation, he will go and select the VM family. Okay, so it's not that randomly we cannot select anything. It is all depending upon what is the requirement. Based on the requirement, you go and select. Okay, hope that answers your question. So availability and resiliency, guys. So this is the topic which we need to understand, and based on this, if you understand this availability and resiliency, you don't have to worry about the VM families, guys, because you will have auto scaled everything. If there is any spike happening, automatically a new VM will get created and things will happen. So don't worry about the VM family for now. Okay, so availability is how available your services are. Now if you suppose if you have deployed your production application, your application which is serving a number of people, and it is deployed on Azure virtual machine. Now how available that virtual machine is right now? Is it 24/7? Okay, what if something happens and the virtual machine goes down, the virtual machine itself goes down? So do you have a backup plan? Okay, do you have a DR plan? That's disaster recovery plan. Is your application up immediately after the VM is up? Now what exactly, so that is what availability means. Is your services available? That means, okay, so suppose you have deployed your VM only in one, sorry, you have deployed an application only in one VM, and the VM itself is down because of some XYZ reason. Your application is gone, your production is gone, correct? So that is not the right strategy, correct? What should you do? You create multiple VMs. That is one of your strategy. Even though if one of the VMs, suppose, what other strategy you can think of in a region, like suppose this is East US. East US, you create multiple VMs and you're hosting your application. It works fine. If this goes down, if this VM is down, no worries. I have the other VM which is taking care of my application. Very good. What if the complete region itself is down? The zone itself is down. East US, the data center itself is down because of some unforeseen reason. Your some flood or some sort of terrorist attack, some sort of or there is unforeseen earthquake, anything as such has happened because of which this whole data center is down. It's gone. Your application gone. There's a huge impact on your application. What to do for this? You have one more region over here. This is suppose West US. This okay. So what you will do to make it more available and resilient, you will have one more VM created. So even though if this particular VM is down, if this is down, you will have get served from here. So you have multiple VMs created in multiple zones. Okay. Now someone said something. Region pair, Victoria. Yeah, region pair will be at the. So I think you're talking about VNet global pairing, correct, Victoria? So at the network layer, yes, you can definitely do that. Okay, that is this example which I'm giving right now, wherein you're creating a VM in multiple regions. It's known as availability zones. Okay, so availability zone is basically it's a physical separated zone within Azure regions. Okay, so physically you're separating. So these are two different cities, guys, altogether. West US, East US. These are two different region altogether. So if there is a flood in this region, no worries. You have your application getting hosted from here and served from here. Each availability zone has its distinct power supply. It will have its distinct networking. It will have its own cooling system. Okay. So by designing your solution, when you're designing your solution, you can replicate your VMs in zones, in multiple zones. This is what availability zone is all about. So basically you can protect your app and data from loss of data center. So if any of the data center goes down, guys, then using this availability zone concept, you can protect your data. If any of the zone gets by any which ways, if any of the zone gets compromised, then your app gets replicated and data gets instantly available on other zone. So if suppose this particular zone is compromised for XYZ reason, so you will have your data gets replicating and everything gets replicated and it will be available instantly in this zone. That is what availability zone is all about. Okay, this keep this in mind. This is very important concept. So this is how your application will be accessible. Okay, even though if you have one of your data center is down, how do we create a VM into an availability zone? It's very easy, guys. Let's go back. Let's create a VM again and let me show you how do you create your VM in an availability zone. So that is your first. So in Azure availability and resiliency, this is availability zone. So availability zone is nothing but your application or your data gets replicated into multiple zones. One important thing. Okay. So availability zone in a region, like if you suppose if you're selecting availability zone, so this is your availability zone. East US is your region. In East US, you will have your multiple availability zone. You will have zone 1, zone 2, zone 3. So you will have your zone 1, zone 2, and zone 3 in East US itself. And suppose when I'm saying East US, just imagine there are 3 cities in East US. There are 3 cities in East US, which has these 3 data centers. These are data centers, guys. The zone 1, zone 2, zone 3, zone. What we are talking about, this is data center. What is data center? Data center is nothing but it's a physical location wherein you have your racks, wherein you have all your compute, your memory, your firewall, and everything. Each zone, all these 3 zone is tightly coupled together with a higher bandwidth fiber optics cable. Okay, suppose if you have your VM created over here, so there's a great chance that it is getting replicated in zone 2 or zone 3. So the communication between these 3 zones is connected using high bandwidth fiber cables. So the latency is next to minimal. So it's less than 2 milliseconds. That kind of latency we're talking about. So if you suppose you're creating a VM in a zone 1 using availability zone, it will also there is a great chance that the VM gets replicated in zone 2. If this region is down, sorry, don't mind my words, not region. If this zone is down, region is this. If this zone is down, then your application will get served from zone 2. This is what availability zone is all about. And the previous example which I gave you, wherein I gave you the example of West US, that was an example of DR, guys. That's a disaster recovery in case if the complete region is down. Okay, so you can have your VM created over here also. In case if the complete region East US itself is down, then your application will be served from West US. So that was an example of, again, a availability example of disaster recovery word. Okay, so just keep the disaster recovery aside for now. Let's talk about availability zone. So this is what availability zone. So each region will have its own power supply, it will have its own network cooling, it will have its own networking. Each region will have. If the zone 2 is down because of power supply issue, no worries, your zone 1 will serve the request. Zone 1 is down, zone 3 will serve the request. So this is what availability zone is all about. Okay, now how do you enable availability zone? That is a important question over here. Again, let's go back to virtual machine. There are multiple things I've talked about, guys. Firstly, I've asked you to sign into Azure. Secondly, I've asked you to download Git Bash. Thirdly, okay, there's a question. Thirdly, we have just created a very simple VM. Fourth, we talked about availability zone. Okay, there's a question. Let's answer that first. In this instance for an availability zone, is it inside a VM? Hmm, uh, I didn't get your question. Could you please elaborate more? In this instance of an availability zone, is it
Oh,
inside a
sorry,
VM?
sorry. I,
Yeah.
I mean in the for a virtual machine, is it inside the availability zone for every availability zone? Do we have to create a virtual machine for it?
No, you
Oh,
don't have to create. Yeah, very good question.
thank
Do
you,
we
thank
have
you.
to create multiple VMs inside? Like suppose this VM needs to create an availability zone one to know. While you create a VM, at that time you can mention which availability zone you want to create your VM, and automatically the replication part. So suppose if you're creating a VM in zone 1, so you will find out that the networking and other things are getting created automatically in zone 2. So this will be automatically taken care by Azure in the backend, guys. So you don't have to do it by yourself. Okay, very good question. So let's go and create a group again because we have deleted the group, if you guys remember. So let's create this group again, VM again. Now if you come down, you see there's an option of availability, and this is the option. Now if you see there is an option of availability zone. What does it mean? Physically separate your resources within Azure region. See this. Now you can select which zone you want to create your resource in. You can select it from here. Even though I'm selecting zone 1, you will find out when later that multiple resources are getting created in other zones, making it highly available. Now this availability zone options are only available in limited region. Now region is nothing but this East US, West US, these are all regions, guys. Okay, it's a complete state. You can call it the complete state as a region. Okay, and in that region you have data centers, that is zone 1, zone 2, zone 3. So you have 3 data centers. So your east, where is my PPT? Okay, this is your region, and then you have your availability zones. So in order to use this availability zone option, your region should have minimum 3 zones. If suppose any of your region does not have 3 zones, you cannot use this availability option in that region. So previously this availability zone option was not available in India because there was no 3 data centers, but now they have 3 data centers. So even in India you have 3 zones available. You can have availability zone option over there. I think in West US they don't have this option. So let's select West US. I think, see this. Do you see this availability zone is grayed out? When I selected region as West US and selected availability zone option, it is grayed out. So in West US, they don't have 3 data centers. If they don't have the 3 data center, you cannot select availability zone option over there. Keep this in mind. Okay, this is definitely an interview question that uh, I'm trying to create a VM in Azure and I want to select availability zone and I want to select zone 1 where my VM should be created, but somehow that option is grayed out. What does that mean? That zone, that region doesn't have 3 zones, and if it doesn't have 3 zone, it will not let you create multiple, it will not let you select availability zone option. Okay, keep things very simple. Let's go back to East US. That's the reason I was selecting East US. Now select zone 1. Now let's all the option, let's keep it by default. Give it the user ID password. Okay, let's review and create. So what I'm doing this time, I'm again creating a VM. The only difference I'm making is I'm selecting the right zone. I've asked that I want my VM to be created in zone 1. One important thing, is it free availability zone? No, there's a cost involved. You can go on to Azure, open the calculator, and you can check availability zone costing. Okay, so that's not free, guys. Everything comes with a cost. Azure availability zone charges or pricing, bandwidth. So bandwidth pricing, this is what you need to pay. See this, if you come to the pricing section, so the bandwidth pricing will cost, so the replication, the bandwidth which you're using, based on that the pricing will happen. See the costing. Data transfer in free, data transfer between availability zone, this is the costing which you need to pay, 0.01 per GB dollar, and rest intercontinental data transfer, all this like between regions if you're doing. So as I said, the second example which I gave you, in which we are doing a transfer from one region to other region, then this is the costing. This is just your availability zone costing, guys. Okay. So this is ready. Now if I go back to the resources, now in the availability zone, do you see the zone 1 is getting created? Your resources are in zone 1. This is how it is showing it right over here. Now if you go to your resource group again, or just check all resources, all resources. See this. We have all these resources getting created. You'll not even come to know by seeing it. You'll not even come to know that which resource got created where. No, automatically it will. If you go inside this, you'll see your VM getting created in zone 1. Okay, this is how you can make use of availability zone. This is how you'll be creating resources in availability zone. Okay, so availability zone is it the only option for making your application more available and more resilient? Can you just rely on availability zone? So the answer is no. There are other factors which you need to consider. The other factors such as availability sets. What exactly is availability set? That is something I'll explain you tomorrow. Third, virtual machine skill set. This is very good example in if you want to make your application more resilient and more available, then definitely you should make use of virtual machine skill set. Third is load balancer. So making sure the network traffic is equally divided, you need to make use of Azure load balancer. Storage redundancy, making sure that your data is stored and it is replicated across multiple zone and it has created multiple backups, then you may need to use the storage redundancy option. Okay. Last, Azure site recovery. That's a disaster recovery thing which I just spoke about. Okay, so this is all we'll be doing practicals, guys. So this is all availability zone set and everything we'll be doing in practical. Tomorrow we'll focus on availability set, then we'll focus on load balancer, then we'll focus on storage redundancy and site recovery. Okay, we got questions now. Very good. Okay, what is the question? So do we have to have one? No, you don't have to do it, Mumin. It will be done automatically. In case of disaster, suppose for example, this zone 1 is down, you will have your things available in zone 2. Automatically the replication is happening in the backdrop. You'll not even come to know that there is a replication happening in the backdrop and you'll be having your things available in the other zone. Okay,
Quick question.
you don't have to go and create in zone 2, zone 3. But if you ask me, in reality, is it the best option for your replication? So I will say no. Wait for other services, the VM skill set and things. Then you'll come to have an idea of what all things needs to be used when you're creating a highly resilient infrastructure. Okay.
Quick question.
Yeah, Josh, tell me.
Yeah. So let's say I have a VM in one region and I want it to be more resilient. Can I also open another VM in another region?
Okay. So this is, yeah, this is again, Josh, up to what type of design architecture you're designing. Now you're saying that you have one VM in one region. Now you want to create this exact same VM in other region to make it more resilient, correct?
Correct. Correct.
Now from the design perspective, if you think this is your best, then you can definitely do it. No one is stopping you for doing that. But in reality, you should either use VM skill set if you want such resiliency. So automatically VM skill set comes with availability zone and availability set. It's a combination of multiple availability services. Plus it will have load balancer. So automatically it will load balance your VMs, and if anything goes bad, like if one of the zone is down, automatically it will serve the request from the other zone. So it will make sure. And if there is a threshold, like your VM has getting high hit, the CPU is getting spiked, then automatically it will create a new VM also for you based on uh, what parameters you have set. So yeah,
Okay.
answering to your question, in cloud there's nothing to say no. If you want this architecture to be created, that I want one in East US VM, the same VM should be created in West US, then definitely you can go and create it. There is no stopping. How the
Okay.
VM will be communicating between the region, there are options. You got global VNet pairing, through which if you want those VM to communicate with each other, there is a way out to do that also. So there's no stopping. You can go and definitely do it. I'll talk about this global VNet pairing later, but for now, just to answer your question, it is possible.
All right. Thank you.
No problem. Yeah, Andy, do you have a question? And if you're speaking, I cannot hear anything. Okay, anyone else, guys? Tomorrow we'll talk about availability sets and we'll talk about load balancer. This is the two availability option which we'll talk about tomorrow. So
Um,
make sure you're available. And yes, Andy, please.
okay. Are we gonna have access to these slides that you use?
Yes, you'll have it. I've already shared it with Valaxy team and it's uploaded on the portal. If you don't see it on the portal, please do let me know. I'll share it to you.
Okay.
Share it with you.
All right. Thank
What
you.
about the recording?
The recordings and everything is available on the portal itself. Please reach out to the Valaxy admin team. Do they have their number over here? No, they don't have it. Yeah, please reach out to them if you have the details with you. And if you're added to the WhatsApp group, you can just ask in the WhatsApp group, how do I access the recording? They will share the user ID and password with you. You can log into the portal. Once you log in, you'll have all your recordings and this PPTs and everything over there.
Okay.
Yep. Yes, Andy.
Yeah, is the VM skill set the same thing as, is it the equivalent of auto scaling group in AWS?
Andy, sorry to say, but your voice is not audible to me.
The VM skill sets in Azure, is it the equivalent of auto scaling groups in AWS?
Andy, can you put your question in the chat because it's very difficult to hear you. Is it only for me or everyone has difficult understanding Andy? Andy, please put your question in the group
Yeah,
chat.
the audio wasn't clear.
Yeah, thank you, Victoria. Okay, guys, so we just started. So the first section is all about cloud. Later, we'll talk about Linux, and the third section will be Git. So this is your plan for 2 weeks. I'm giving a plan for 2 weeks. This is what we're doing in next 2 weeks. So make sure you're ready. And whatever I give, like whatever we do, make sure to go and practice. Don't leave it. Anything that you'll do it later. We are in this complete course. It's a very pretty big course, which we're talking about 60 to 65 days. And there are n number of tools and technologies we'll be learning. Make sure to practice as much you can. Okay, that is the only request I have. Okay, in virtual machine skill set, the equivalent of auto scaling group in AWS auto scaling group. Yes, you can say that. But along with auto scaling, not just auto scaling, there are multiple other things also with virtual machine skill set. We got feature of load balancer. We got feature of availability sets. All this, and we can even include availability zones over there. So auto scaling, yes, you can say yes. But yeah, along with not it virtual machine skill set is not all about scaling. There are other things which is also there with scaling. Okay, we can integrate load balancer also with scaling. Yeah, so answering to your question, you can say yes, but yeah, partially. Okay, anyone else, guys? Any other question before we wind up the call for today? Yeah, Ayo, please sign into Azure portal. Try
That
to
was going to
create this
be,
VM.
yeah, that was going to be my question actually. I was trying my best to follow along in creating the VM.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a recording somewhere or slides that has to step by step of how to create the VM on Azure?
Yes, yes, it's there, and you can even just follow the same recording, and the other recordings are also there. So you'll be given access from the Valaxy admin team, and you will find all the recordings over there. Okay.
All right, all right. I'll ask on the WhatsApp group.
Yeah, yeah. Please ask. You can mark it to Bindu. There's a person Bindu in the group and Madhu. They can help you out. Okay. The Is this the first lecture? No, we had couple of sessions previously, Srisha. No worries. You have not missed anything. We'll be covering those sessions also for you. Don't worry. That's the reason I went very scratch today, from very scratch, and it was kind of a repetition for others. But don't worry, if you have missed anything, we'll cover that again. No worries. Okay. Yeah, and documentation as mentioned by the Valaxy team, they will be updating on the portal. Please log into your portal and access the documentation from there. Okay, guys, thank you very much. Thanks for your time. Thank you for joining. Let's meet up tomorrow and let's continue this availability and resiliency topic again. Tomorrow we'll talk about availability set and load balancer. Okay, bye bye.